Welcome to part 2 of Reasonable Answer. As you might have seen in part 1, some of the fractions didn't come through when I uploaded this document in the program so I wrote the fractions in here, but you'll see them downloaded in the worksheet packet that you download off of my math lab. So we're just going to continue through and work the rest of these problems in the Reasonable Answer section. So, on a map, 1 inch represents 120 miles. How much does 2/5 of an inch represent? Well, if 1 inch is 120 miles and 2/5 is less than 1 inch, we know anything more than 120 miles doesn't make sense. So we can get rid of 300. 2/5 is a little bit less than a half, so it probably is not going to be 115 miles either. That's going to be way too much. And then we want to check the units on this. Notice, 120 is in miles. The second answer is in feet, so we're not looking for that one. And the only reasonable answer is, in fact, 48. Okay. Moving on to the next question. Ellen is knitting a scarf with one 4.5 inch blue stripe, one 1 8/9 inch green stripe, and one 1 7/8 inch white stripe. How wide is the scarf? Well, if it has a stripe that's 4.5 inches, it's got to be more than 4.5 inches. 19/41 is not more than 1. That's not the right answer. 72 595ths, that is less than 1 as well. And 2 3/19 is less than 4 inches alone, so just knowing that we have the 4.5 inch blue stripe, it has to be the 8.5. And if we kind of add this up, 1 8/9 is about 2, 1 7/8 is about 2, 2 plus 4.5 is about 8.5. We got the right answer. So, this next one. When Paul set off to drive to her friend's house, the odometer reads 7,156.2 miles. When she arrived at her friend's house, the odometer reads 7,316.3 miles. How far has she driven? Okay, well, let's figure this out. How far she's driven is going to be the difference of this number and this number. Well, we can see that in the hundredths unit, we have a 1 here, and we have a 3 here, so they've driven at least 100 miles, something in that ballpark. So let's look at the answers. 6 miles? Way too short. 17,000 miles to visit her friend? Probably a bit too long. So we left these last two. And notice, because the units here are miles and the units here are miles, we're looking for something in miles. That gets rid of the fourth answer. So the answer is 160.1 mile. Mr. Davis grosses $500 a week. If his take-home pay is $413.56, how much money was deducted from his gross weekly check? Well, if he takes home $413 out of that $500, the actual gross amount deducted from his check is the difference of the $500 and the $413. So that difference is not $413. That's what he's getting, not how much is taken out. They're not going to take out $913 because he only makes $500. And if we take $7.44 away from $500, we're not going to get $413. The only reasonable answer here is $86.44. If a camera costs $690, if the sales tax rate is 5%, how much tax is charged and what is the total price? Round your answer to the nearest cent. Okay. So, if we look at these answers really quickly, a camera costs $690. Well, this answer here, $345 in tax, that would be 50% tax. That's half of the actual price. That doesn't make sense. $5, well, that's 5% of 100. Well, $690 is more than that. It can't be that as well. So we're left with these two other ones. And as far as the tax is concerned, it could be $41.40 or it could be $34.50. Now, if you think about it, if we add $41.40 to our $690, which is the cost of the camera, that's going to be roughly $730, not $930. That's problematic here. So this third answer is the only reasonable one that we have here. Number 11, in a clinical study, 13 of 850 subjects receiving a migraine medication developed side effects. What percentage developed side effects? Well, if we're looking at percentages, the way we would calculate that is 17 out of 850. Now, we don't really want to calculate this, but just looking at this, this is clearly not 100. And 65%, we would need the numerator to be at least half, actually more than half of the denominator. That's not the case either. So we're stuck with 2% or 0.004%. Well, 0.004 is 4 tenths 10 to thousands, which is a very small number. We notice that this number is actually even smaller than that number here. It can't be that. It must be 2%. So, moving along to number 12. Now, on number 12, it says find the length of a rectangular lot with a perimeter that's 118 meters. Now, as soon as I read find the length of a rectangular lot, I'm going to draw a rectangle. And I'm going to label this the length, and I'm going to label that the width. Okay? Now, it goes on to say if the length is 5 more than the width, we want to find out what the length is. So we're finding the length of this. Now remember that the perimeter is 2 lengths plus 2 w's. That is, the perimeter is the distance to go all the way around this rectangle right there. So let's just think about it. That means that we have 118 meters to go all the way around that right there. So all the way around. Well, if the length is 113, that'd be 113. The top would be 113, giving us 226. That's way too much for the length. Okay? Additionally, if we look at this, the length is 64. Well, if the top is 64 and the bottom is 64, that right there is going to be 128. That's more than our 118 right there, so it can't be that. If it's 59, 59 and 59 is 118, that would be the flattest rectangle that you've ever seen. Not going to be that answer either, so the length is 32 meters. And one recommendation that I have is before you can press pause and try the problem yourself and see what answer you get, and then compare it to the answer that I'm giving you, because these are kind of the things that I'm thinking about. I'm telling you what I'm thinking about as I'm going through the problem, and hopefully you are doing a similar thing. So, excuse me. Shamil left a 19% tip for a meal. The total cost of the meal, including the tip, was $53. So this right here represents the cost of the meal plus the tip. This is tip plus meal. What was the cost of the meal before the tip was added? That is, what was the actual cost of the meal? Well, you're not going to leave $53 on a $4.38 meal. 53 seems pretty good, but then you're only leaving a 55-cent tip, and I don't think 19% of 53 is 55. That's going to be a little bit too much. $281, if you're leaving $53.55 on a $281 bill, you're probably going to get a visit from the police for stealing from them. So it's not going to be this one. And finally, we get this $45. And that is what we're looking for on that one. Okay. Now, number 14 here, Martha can rake her yard with the leaves in her yard in 4 hours, or 6 hours. So she's got 6 hours to do that. Her younger brother can do the job in 7 hours. How long will it take if they're working together? Well, the way that I think through this, if there's 2 Marthas, it would take half the time, because you'd have 2 Marthas. So 2 Marthas would take about 3 hours. If we had 2 brothers, well, if we had 2 brothers, they would do the job in half the time one brother would do, so that'd be 3.5 hours. So, because we don't really have 2 Marthas or 2 brothers, we have one of each, we know the true answer is going to be between 3 and 3.5 hours. And just looking over here, it doesn't make sense that it'll take them 13 hours if Martha can do it in 6 hours alone. It's not going to take them longer than individually. It's not going to take them longer to do it together than it does individually. 40 seconds, that's like 20 minutes. That seems a little bit short. 42 hours, that is really long. The only thing left is 42/13, and if you divide 42 by 13 on your calculator, you'll find you're going to get a number right there between 3 and 3.5. Okay, moving on to 15. Excuse me, I'm a little under the weather. A loaded moving truck is traveling 35 miles an hour faster than a freight train. In the time it takes the train to travel 140 miles, the truck travels 280. Find the speed of the truck. Well, truck equals train plus 35. That is, we know that the train is traveling 35 miles an hour less than the truck, or the truck is that. We could also say that train equals truck minus 35. So, if we think about this, well, let's go from the bottom up on this. If the truck's going 35 miles an hour, the train is going 0 miles an hour, 35 minus 35, 0. but the train's moving at 140 miles, so that can't be the case. If the truck is traveling 14 miles an hour, well, 14 minus 35 is a negative number, so I guess the train's not, it's going backwards or something else. Then we're left with 70 or 350. Now, the question I have for you is, does a truck go 350 miles an hour, possibly off a cliff, but not on the road? So we're going to get rid of that one right there. And the only reasonable answer here is 70 miles an hour. Now, with this next problem, there are 450 people at the play. The admission price for children was $1, adults $2. Admission receipts were $650. How many adults and children attended? Because we have 450 total people, adults plus children should equal 450. So let's do a little check on this first. Now, 16 adults and 2 children, add that together, that's 18 people, way less than the people that actually attended the play. 350 and 200, that's 550 more people that attended the play, not good. 200 adults, 200 children, this one's looking pretty good. And if we look at the bottom one, 125 adults and 325 chickens, well, we're looking for children, not chickens. It is answer number 3. Now on to the last one. A cruise boat travels 96 miles downstream in 4 hours and returns upstream in 12 hours. Find the rate of the stream if the boat's traveling 16 miles an hour. So this is going to be our stream. Let's say the current's going downstream, and this is our boat. It's a pretty awesome boat. It'll be a sailboat today. Why not? So if we're going to find the rate of the stream if the boat's traveling 16 miles an hour. So I'll put a 16 mph. Now let's think about this. If the stream's going 16 miles an hour and the boat's going 16 miles an hour, to an observer on the shore, it would look like the boat is just standing still because all the current that's going down has to be fought by all the propulsion that's going up, so it's not going anywhere. But it does go upstream, so that can't be it. If the stream's going 24 miles an hour, the boat would actually only be able to go backwards because the current is faster than the actual rate the boat can travel. It can't be that. Same thing, stream traveling 400 miles an hour, probably not one that you want to be on with a boat. Can't make sense. It's got to be 8 miles an hour. So, I hope those made sense to you. Please feel free to watch them again, and I'll see you next time for Draw a Picture.